All right, so we're going to take a look at scientific notation, kind of give you the run through. Scientific notation basically is just an easier way to write out big and small numbers. If you have a number that has a lot of zeros, sometimes it's really confusing and hard to look at and count zeros and all of that kind of thing. So it gives us kind of a shorthand way to write out big and small numbers. The rule for our classes will be if you have more than 3 zeros, then put numbers into scientific notation. That's just kind of where it starts to make the most sense. It's totally fine to always use scientific notation, but our rule will just be if you have more than 3 zeros, then use it. And then the only other thing you kind of have to keep in mind is that the front number, for it to be proper scientific notation form, the front number has to be between 1 and 10. And so I'll kind of show you what that means. If you have like a number, let's just say you got a number of 220,000. Make that a 0. So you have this number. Scientific notation form has you move the decimal point back, and if we parked it here, so 2.2 times 10 to the 5th, that is proper scientific notation form. If you look at that front number, that's between 1 and 10. You could have stopped short and done this, and numerically speaking, it's the same number, but if you notice, this front number is not between 1 and 10, so this would not be considered proper scientific notation form. So there's always just one correct way to do it. There's always a way to move the decimal to get a number between 1 and 10, and you just want to make sure that you do that so that it's right. So we can either take numbers from a regular number and put them into scientific notation, or we can take a number that's in scientific notation. So let's just do 1.5 times 10 to the 3rd, and we could put that into a regular number as well. The exponent tells us how many places the decimal gets moved. And so in this case, we're going to need to move this decimal 3 places. The positive number here tells us that our number is going to get bigger. And so that's how we know when we come down here that we're going to move this 1, 2, 3 places. And so that we're going to get a resulting number of 1,500 for that number. So we moved it 3 places from where it was at, and this is our regular number now. We can also do negative numbers with these as well. So we could do 2.9 times 10 to the negative 4th. This the negative sign here tells us that our number here is going to get smaller, or we're going to have to move to the left. So negative always means move your decimal point to the left. And so in this case, we're going to need to put zeros on the left-hand side. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 places. So that gets parked here. So our resulting answer as a regular number is this. So you can go either from a regular number to scientific notation or scientific notation into a regular number. And it's all about the exponent. That tells you how many places you have to move your decimal or how many places the decimal has been moved. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Calculator-wise, sometimes that's maybe one of the trickier areas. You've seen this in the past and you just need a little refresher. But calculator-wise, entering these into the calculator is going to be important throughout class as well. So I want to show you a few different ways that calculators show this. I just pulled out a few different versions of calculators so you could see it. This is a Texas Instrument brand. Look to see if your calculator has an EE button. That's typically the way that you'll see these abbreviated. There's different ways, but that EE button right there allows us to enter something in scientific notation. So if we have the number like 1.2 times 10 to the 3rd, this calculator allows us to do 1.2. The EE button takes care of the times 10 to the 3rd. And so now I've just entered that number that's in scientific notation into the calculator, and you can actually hit equals and it will take it out of scientific notation for you. So look for the EE button. That's a popular way that calculators show the times 10 part. There are other options. This is another Texas Instrument that a lot of people end up using. And if you notice on this one, I'll have to point here, the EE is actually up here. And so you're going to have to hit the second button. So if you do, get this thing turned on here. If you do 1.2 and then times 10 to the 3rd, so I had to use an extra key there. I just had to hit the second key to get to the EE. And then I can hit equals, and that shows us that number in regular form. Different brands show different ways. I tried to pull out a couple different types of calculators. This one's actually got a times 10 to the X button. So this is a Casio, a little bit of a different setup. So this one, let's see if we can crank this one on. Oh, hit the on button. There we go. 1.2 and then times 10 to the third. So using the same example, this one notates it a little bit differently up here as well. It actually types in the times 10, and it'll do the same format. If you hit equals, it will show you the answer. So that'll help out with some of our calculations. We're going to need to enter numbers that are in scientific notation into our calculators, and that's usually the easiest way to do it. There are other techniques. Some people like to use the caret and actually type things in, but that's probably the most straightforward way.